morning, Magic fans from Dublin, Ireland, wherever you are, whatever time it is, where you are. I'm your host, Brian David Marshall. I'm joined at the desk by R&D member Ian Duke and Tim Willoughby, coverage reporter extraordinaire, and we're here to bring you all the action on day 2 of Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Sorry to say, Rich Hagon, normally sitting in the seat, everyone sort of shifted one to the right. He's not feeling well today. We're hoping he feels better, maybe by this afternoon even. But not here today, and we are going to soldier on without him. Let's talk about what's in store today. We have about roughly 200 players coming back out of a massive day 1 field, and let's take a look at what we're going to be doing here on day 2. Let's take a look at the schedule and format of what's going on. Yesterday, you see, we did Aether Revolt draft. We did standard constructed. Now, everyone with a 4-4 record or better comes back, and we're going to start off again with 3 rounds of Aether Revolt Kaladesh draft. Ian, what did we learn about this draft format yesterday? What are we going to see today as we watch these guys draft?
Well, I was in the booth yesterday at BDM, and we saw some awesome games there. Definitely a lot of dissension among the top teams about what the best strategies are. We heard some teams sort of maintaining that it's important to stay open. Any strategy can work as long as you're in the right seat and you're finding the open strategy. Other teams thought the format was very, very aggressive, that you wanted to be in these heavy red decks, going for cards like Ether Chaser and picking up removal spells really early so you could keep the pressure on your opponents. But a lot of fantastic games yesterday. We saw an awesome comeback with Brad Nelson versus Yoel Larson. Check that one out if you didn't get a chance.
Still really the match of the weekend so far.
Absolutely.
Now, I got my face smashed in by Ether Chasers last night. The card is brutal if you can't deal with it right away. Now, after 3 rounds of draft time, we're going to go to standard. What did we learn about the standard format yesterday?
Well, I think that the level 0 plan for standard was very much, you've got Saheeli Rai, you've got your cats, you're going to make infinite cats. As it turns out, more or less everyone was prepared for that plan. We certainly do have some Saheeli Rai decks, both straight combo and slightly more control-oriented versions. But actually, the top decks from a lot of the top teams in the field were either looking at Winding Constrictor, getting a Walking Ballista in play, disrupting that combo and being very proactive on beating down, or simply doing vehicles. Vehicles were good in Kaladesh. Even though Smuggler's Copter has gone away, there are still a huge amount of great vehicles to play, and sometimes you can just win by winning before that kind of combo can even become a factor.
Heart of Kieran became a big card this weekend, one of the breakout cards, alongside, of course, Winding Constrictor in standard.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of doing a deck tech with Sam Party yesterday. He walked us through his Mardu Vehicles deck and playing 4 copies of Heart of Kieran, despite it being legendary, despite it being difficult to remove. That really says something about the power of that card.
Now, we make it through 3 rounds of draft. We make it through 5 rounds of standard. The top 8 players get to continue playing at that point. They're going to come back tomorrow. And, at the last Pro Tour, we introduced a new top 8 structure, Ian. Let's take a look at what a top 8 bracket looks like, because more than ever, those last rounds of Swiss, where normally we saw a lot of handshakes and intentional draws, that's become a lot more precarious, because getting a top seed for Sunday is crucial. As you look at this bracket, being in the bottom of the top 8, you have to play more Magic than someone who's 3rd or 4th or first. The best yet, 1st or 2nd.
Yeah, very, very true. Again, this is a new system designed to make sure that no one's able to kind of coast through the finish line, right? One way to think of it is if you end up in 1st or 2nd place in the Swiss, you essentially are getting like a 2-round bye in the top 8. If you're in 3rd or 4th, you're getting a 1-round bye, and if you're in 5th through 8th, it's sort of the old top 8. You have to slug through the whole thing just like you were before.
Well, I can tell you that to get to the top 8, we need to start at a draft table, and that draft table is ready to start right now. We're going to go down to the floor. We're going to watch the top 8 players from yesterday draft and try to maintain that position as they move through this tournament. Let's go down to the floor.
Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas, and it's time for day 2. We've got booster draft lined up for you, 2 packs of Aether Revolt followed by a pack of Kaladesh. Let's set the table here, as it were. Let's see who our drafters are in our featured pod. Now, you can see the name in the lower right there, Cesar Segovia from Panama. We're going to be watching him draft here. He was 8-0 overnight, wearing it must be said, a very cool hat.
Yeah, the hat, I assume, is integral to his success.
Yeah, it's a big part of the plan. But looking around the table, as you might expect at the top tables of at the top pod, I should say, of the Pro Tour on day 2 here, there's some massive names here. There's a Ben Stark. You see Hall of Famer Ben Rubin up there. Lucas Blahan is at the table. So, this is going to be one of those tables that's going to be very difficult to work your way through no matter who you are sitting here.
Definitely. And one thing to note, by the way, is Cesar is going to play Liu Yuchen in round 1 because they're the 2 8-0 players. So
so they already know that.
They do know that. That shouldn't impact how they draft in particular, but it does make it slightly better for Liu to hate draft going left and for Cesar to hate draft going right. Not a big impact, but you do know who your opponent is here. And they're sitting quite close to each other on the table.
All right, well, it's time. Let's head down to the draft tables for our second draft of Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Aether Revolt. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we are ready for the booster draft here on day 2. This is, of course, the first Magic action of the day. The players are still kind of finishing off the coffee, getting stretched out, but they're ready to go. Our drafter, Cesar Segovia, wearing that hat.
The dramatic pen is perfect.
It's just great. He's from Panama. He's 8-0 overnight, and he is ready to crack this. Now, I got to tell you, Luis, this is his first Pro Tour.
Yeah,
8-0.
He has not lost a match on the Pro Tour.
Yeah. Do you think he thought about just calling it good?
Yeah, just like, all right, I'm going to call it right here.
Yeah.
So
go out on top.
Starting 8-0 means that under most circumstances, a 4-3-1 record will actually take him into the top 8 here.
So he still has to have a reasonable day, but geez, that's a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work so far.
All right, so here's his opening pack. He's got a Rishkar's Expertise, it looks like, pulled to the back for his rare, and as well as a Tezzeret's Touch as he works his way through. Ooh, Daring Demolition and a Shock also jump out.
There's also a Thopter Arrest, it looked like. And so basically, Cesar has his options between Rishkar's Expertise, which is a very powerful rare. If you draw 3 cards off that, I think you're pretty happy. But Thopter Arrest, Daring Demolition, and Shock, all very consistent removal spells. I think narrowing it down to Thopter Arrest as the best of the removal options versus Rishkar's Expertise as potentially the most powerful card are both, very solid options. I do like Tezzeret's Touch, but being a gold card means I'm less inclined to pick it pack 1.
Yeah, especially with so many good options out of this pack, you just don't really need to take that kind of risk. So Cesar is going to take Rishkar's Expertise. He's going to go for that highest possible power level, and that card can be an absolute blowout. So I like his pick here. Let's see what he picks up out of his second pack. Looking for green cards. Well, he's got a reasonable one there with the Druid of the Cowl.
Druid of the Cowl combines quite well with Rishkar's Expertise, and not because you draw 1 card off it, because it's a card that accelerates into the 5 drops that you want to cast before you cast the 6 drop in Rishkar's Expertise. It just goes very well in the kinds of decks that tend to want Expertise. And it also is convenient because it just looks like the best card in the pack.
Yeah, it does. This pack's significantly worse than the pack that he opened up. That one had multiple first pickable cards in it. This one really doesn't.
Yeah, there's a Caught in the Brights as a solid white removal spell, but even then, Druid of the Cowl, especially given Cesar's first pick, I think seems like the clear choice here.
Indeed. All right, so looking good so far. Rishkar's Expertise and a Druid of the Cowl is a nice way to start things off. So we'll see what kind of green cards he gets past, and then just what kind of cards in general. Uh-oh. I didn't see any very good green cards in there, Luis. I think the only one I saw was a Silkweaver Elite.
Yeah,
which is a pretty mediocre card.
There's a couple options here. Deadeye Harpooner, if you want to lean towards a green-white Revolt, that's a reasonable option. A little hard to get going, but when it works, it is, of course, quite powerful. And then Cesar looks like he was looking at the frontline Rebel and ended up going with the Harpooner.
Yeah, I think as a color pair, I like red and green together better, but I do think the Harpooner has a higher ceiling than the frontline Rebel, which is a, kind of a medium strength card. All right, let's see where Cesar goes from here.
So there's the high payoff Lifecraft Awakening, though in green-white that is less likely to end up working out just because the artifact count tends not to be quite as high. There's High Spire Infusion as a decent combat trick, and looks like I was looking at the Ironclad Revolutionary.
I think given the white card he just took, I don't hate just taking a decommission there, but... Is he going for the big, beefy power card here to try to complement his Rishkar's expertise, or what?
That's what it looks like, and he's certainly not, he's not seeing a strong white signal either. So I think it's very reasonable to look at the Ironclad Revolutionary because of the Rishkar's expertise.
Yeah, this is interesting now because now we're seeing some really strong blue cards come through. Bastion Inventor and Trophy Mage, yet no green cards of note. Another Lifecraft.
There's also a Renegade map. It's kind of unassuming card, but one of the reasons I would really like taking something like Renegade map in spots like this is you don't know what colors you're going to be.
Oh, I agree with you. He ended up taking an Embrawl Gear Smasher, testing out the red waters here. So this will be interesting. He certainly stayed open, and he could get rewarded by finding which colors are open, but he didn't take a blue card, and that did seem to be the color that was the most open there.
Unbridled Growth is another card, kind of like Renegade Map, that where if you don't know what colors you're going to be, it ends up being pretty strong, and it enables Revolt. Both those cards are very strong at doing that. So that's certainly one of the more safe picks. It could be that Cesar is seeing that red is open here, and he passed a Frontline Rebel 2 packs ago. He almost took it. And then now it's taking the Gear Smasher into another Frontline Rebel and kind of segueing into a red-green aggressive deck, or just a red aggressive deck, and he's not even sure what his other color is.
Well, there's Destructive Tampering sitting at the back of that pack. Still, the green cards haven't really been flowing. He's had a couple pickable green cards, nothing completely gone, but not the really good stuff. He hasn't been seeing the scrounging Bandars and stuff that you'd hope to pick up in that fourth, fifth pick type scenario. He's going to take an Aeronaut Admiral out of this pack.
So to recap where Cesar is right now, he has 2 green cards that he first and second picked. Hasn't taken a green card since, so I think he's less likely to be green than something like red-white, because now he has 2 red cards and 2 white cards.
That's right.
As well as, of course, the 1 black card. And the 2 red and the 2 white are later in the pack, which means it is more of an indication that things are open.
Now he's pulled a Defiant Salvager to the front. He's also taken a quick read of Barricade Breaker, a powerful improvised card, and he's actually going to take that. All right, well, he's going to need to pick up those cheap artifacts to really enable the improvised strategy if he wants to try to play cards like Barricade Breaker, because they're not very good for 7 mana, but they're pretty good when you only have to pay 4 or 5 for them.
Definitely, and Implement of Combustion looks like a very good card, given that you just took Barricade Breaker. Bastion Enforcer and Filigree Crawler are other options as to fill out your curve.
Yeah, they don't do a particularly good job of it, if we're honest.
I would have been much more interested in taking Implement of Combustion there, given that you have that Barricade Breaker.
That's right. And you can see all the rest of the cards in the pack are blue-black or colorless with blue or black affiliation there. It looks like he picked up an Alley Strangler as we sort of wind down the pack. Now, this is an interesting scenario that Cesar finds himself in, because he doesn't really have a strong path ahead of him. He has dabbled around in a few different colors. I think he correctly recognized that green wasn't flowing, and he jumped off that train pretty quickly. But he still hasn't really solidified himself really in any color completely. Is that a Cruel Finality still in the pack?
That's 3 cards in the pack. Cruel Finality. Well, that's a big signal that black might be open.
Yeah,
which is weird because there weren't a ton of good late pick black cards before, but Cruel Finality is quite strong. So
I'm telling you, blue and black are wide open at the table. His last picks have been stacked up with blue and black cards.
I do think the ship has sailed on blue at this point.
Because he just doesn't have any blue
Cesar
cards.
has no blue cards.
Yeah.
Pack 2 is not going to be great for blue. Let's see how he lays his cards out. That could give us a clue. Potentially he could be red-black or he could be white-black here. I think those last couple black cards have made him much more likely to end up in black than he would have before. He has 2 green cards, 2 white cards, 2 black cards. So what that means is Cesar does have some degree of flexibility. He's paid for it, though. He's going to be a little shorter on playables if he ends up having a pack 2 that's similar to pack 1.
Yeah, this is a scenario where he has kept himself open, which is powerful, but it's going to limit the number of sideboard cards he has. It's going to limit. He's going to have to run pretty good to make sure that he hits his playable count, because if he ends up a little bit short, that can be pretty tough. I had a quick chat with Frank Karsten earlier. He had a splash yesterday in his limited deck for Thriving Ibex.
Well, that's not where you want to be.
Right, and that's the kind of thing that can happen if you end up short on playables, and this is one of the things that can happen as a result. So we'll see.
What I would expect to see from here is that if Cesar opens a really powerful rare in any of the non-black colors, he's more likely to just edge into that color because he's not firmly committed. Otherwise, he's just going to see which of red or white is more open. I think he's off green at this point, given he saw no green in pack 1.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because he will see more likely more green cards coming from the other direction, but it's a little bit of a trap because in pack 3, he's unlikely to see them again. But I am looking for Cesar to really try to solidify himself into 2 colors here and start upping that playables count, just so that he doesn't go into that third pack desperate, to pick up 5 or 6 playables, where he can have a little bit of flexibility as far as picking cards for his mana curve. Or
yeah, I would say by about pick 4 of this draft, he needs to have selected his 2 colors. Like, after that,
of this pack?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. After that, it becomes a lot more dangerous to end up kind of hedging.
Okay, so let's see what he gets here. Secret Salvages is rare. That's not a card he's going to want to play.
So,
ooh, there's an Aether
Chaser. Some people say it's the best common, if not the best, among the top couple. So Aether Chaser, very appealing. Defiant Salvager, one reason to take that is that you are much more likely to be black than red. But I think the power level of Aether Chaser is high enough that I'd really be looking at just taking Aether Chaser in this pack.
Yeah, also the Defiant Salvager as an enabler for Revolt actually works best with his white card that he's got, and that, it's kind of hard to play both of the black and the white. I guess he could go that direction. I think he took the Aether Chaser there.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, just took the best card out of the pack. And it's in one of his colors, so let's see if he can... Oh, geez, there's a Whining Constrictor.
Whining Constrictor gives you incentive to edge back into green, as funny as that is. It's just one of the best cards in the set.
It really is.
And the other alternative would be Aether Poisoner. Aether Poisoner is good. It's a solid card. You will always play it when you're playing black. Whining Constrictor has a higher payoff, and Cesar also might be in a position here where his draft's not going great. Like, you were not going to be happy with this selection of cards so far. Taking the most powerful card in Whining Constrictor and hoping just to get there on green in this pack could lead you to the best overall deck.
He's doing it. He went for the Whining Constrictor. Yeah, you know what? I think at this point in the draft, given the cards that he has, he needs to take on a little bit of extra risk here and just kind of hope to pick up enough green playables out of this pack. Because again, he won't be expecting to get too many out of the next pack.
Right. So we noticed that Cesar took green cards first and second picks, saw no other green cards. But what that means is that the players to his left, the players who are passing to him in this pack, not likely to be green given how few green cards got passed. So Cesar can pick up green cards in this pack and then end up just getting black cards in pack 3.
Yeah, there's an Aether Stream Leopard in the middle of the pack there. He also pulled Perilous Predicament to the front, and there's another Aether Poisoner as well.
I kind of like the Aether Poisoner here just because it's so cheap.
Yeah, I think that's the type of card that you need when your deck is looking a little shaky and you want to make sure that you're just going to take a card that you're going to put in your deck. Now, Perilous Predicament is another high variance card. That is the type of card that can be an absolute blowout, or it can kind of underperform for you a bit. All right, let's see what Cesar has here. Another
Druid of the Cowl is solid, especially if you're trying to play like a green-black deck that's ramping into something like Rishkar's Expertise. Late Thopter Arrest. Thopter Arrest, one of the premium removal spells in the format.
Yeah, that's going to catch his eye as well. But this is where the flexibility that he used earlier in the draft means that he's not going to be able to. I think he just took that Automaton.
He took Verdant Automaton. My guess is to combo with Winding Constrictor, but taking Verdant Automaton over Druid of the Cowl is not something most players would do.
All right, so he's got a Prey Upon. And like we said, the green is moving through quite nicely here.
Green is open in this pack, as I expected it would be.
Yeah.
As you mentioned in pack 1, Prey Upon a solid removal spell in a deck with the big creatures that you're looking for to enable Rishkar's Expertise.
Yeah, hopefully he finds some of them.
Yeah,
currently he's short on the big ones.
He's got Ironclad Revolutionary if he's green-black, and past that he does not have other big creatures.
Right, he just needs a few of the 5-drops, and at this point it's unlikely for him to get the big powerful uncommons and such, but still there's some just beefy mid-range 4 and 5 mana creatures that he can put into his deck as well. And there's one of them now, Aether Herder.
As well as Ironclad Revolutionary if you really want the big creature. Though he's a little short on cheap artifacts as well, so the Ironclad Revolutionary is going to be closer to a 6-mana 4/4 than the 6-mana 6/6 you want it to be.
Yeah, I think I like just taking the Aether Herder here. It looks like he went for the Night Market Aeronaut there.
He's a little short on Revolt Enablers, so I think Aether Herder is going to end up serving his deck a little better, just given the way his cards are right now. If he can pick up some Revolt Enablers, clearly a 3/3 flyer is going to be better.
Not a whole lot out of this pack. There's a Resourceful Return, but he's a little short on artifacts to turn that out. He's reading Sly Requisitioner right now to see if he can make that fit into his deck, but it doesn't seem like it really goes that well in his deck either. maybe just take a natural obsolescence. Generally reserved for the sideboard, but you can main deck one of those if you need to. And again, when you're working with fewer playables, sometimes you do take a shot at a card like that and just say, hey, if I hit a vehicle with this, it's fantastic. And if I can't find my target for it, well, not so good.
All right, Defiant Salvager, leaning into the artifact theme, that though Cesar has a pretty distinct lack of cheap artifacts to feed to the Salvager, feed to the Ironclad Revolutionary. He's really, it's getting late to pick up implements. That's the kind of card he needs. He can try to look for puzzle knots in Kaladesh here, or Prophetic Prism, and hope to get some of those.
He's got a nice little 2-drop with Hidden Herbalist. It basically doesn't do much beyond be a 2-drop, but hey, he needs those right now.
He does. Filigree Crawler, he does actually have one of those already to combo with his Artifact Sacrifice theme.
Lifecraft Awakening, does he have enough targets? It only targets artifacts.
It's a very powerful card. We actually saw 2 in pack 1.
Yeah, and remember, he still has the Snake.
Yeah, he does have Winding Constrictor, but he ended up going with the High Spire Infusion, which is a more safe card in this particular spot.
Yeah, more general purpose. Oh no! Don't do it, Cesar. Oh no! He took the Prize Fighter construct. It's come to this.
Well, I don't think he wanted another Natural Obsolescence, so he's not looking at playing 2 of those.
Yeah, that's true. Also, it works well with expertise, right?
Yes, it is true.
I mean, we said he needed 5 drops with high power. He found one. Crackdown Construct as he winds down this pack. We did see him, though, do what we wanted, which was solidify himself in 2 colors. He is going to be green-black going into the last pack.
He's unquestionably green-black at this point. And I still think he's got a lot of work to do in pack 3. I don't think he's happy with his draft so far, because there's multiple things going on. One, he's got Rishkar's Expertise, but not enough creatures to really fuel it. He's got Winding Constrictor and needs more +1/+1 counters to really maximize the potential of that card, which is very high. That card's excellent. And he really, really, more than anything else, needs cheap artifacts. He's got Barricade Breaker, Ironclad Revolutionary, Defiant Salvager, and even Night Market Aeronaut, which kind of counts because it wants those artifacts to be sacrificed, but he's critically missing those artifacts, whatever those are. Like the prisms, the puzzle knots. I mean, the ship has sailed on implements. Those are no longer on the table, but Kaladesh does have some good cheap artifacts to offer. Narnam Cobra, Consulate Skygate. These are the kind of cards Cesar really needs to pick up. Cogworker's Puzzle Knot would be perfect for this kind of deck. But right now, when we talk about drafting a deck, you want to kind of have synergy and powerful cards. Cesar does have some powerful cards. Winding Constrictor and Rishkar's Expertise are both great. What he's lacking is synergy. He just doesn't have all the tools he needs, where these cards are not going to perform all that well individually, and they don't combine all that well. And that's just not the place you want to be.
He's also a little short on creatures. He needs to make sure that he mines his curve. He's basically not in the luxurious spot of being able to have a lot of deference with his picks, where you go, well, I'll take this 2-drop over the slightly better 4 because I need a better curve pick. It's much more along the lines of desperation mode when he opens his pack and just hoping he gets playables. Because remember, one of the other storylines here is that green was cut severely coming from the right side in pack 1, and this is pack 3. That's coming from the same direction. There's a good chance that he doesn't see a lot of great green cards out of this pack.
He's got to hope that black delivers in this pack, and I like black plenty in Kaladesh, so that much isn't an issue. But yeah, I would not expect to get good late pick green cards because the players to his right are likely drafting green.
Well, he's got a Snare Thopter at the back. It looks like a Pima Outrider here too. This is the pack where nobody can get to his green card, so he could certainly pick up one of those.
Pima Outrider helps because it makes a servo for all your artifact synergies. On the other hand, Snare Thopter is just a good aggressive card and is an artifact in and of itself. So I do like Snare Thopter here.
I think I'd take the Outrider if it were me, just mainly because if I have a Rishkar's Expertise in my hand, I can sculpt a game where I play that with a counter on it. Also, that helps with the Winding Constrictor. I think the Snare Thopter is a little bit more efficient of a threat, but I like the synergies with his deck. The option to make a +1/+1 counter or a servo in this deck are both quite good.
It does offer some good flexibility.
Yeah. Let's see what he picks up out of his second pick here. This is the window where he can pick up a few green cards. Interesting. I saw a Tune with Aether in there. Does he have splash possibilities here?
Nothing really, no.
Worth it,
like
right?
Deadeye Harpooner is the closest to a splash card, but that's not something I'm too interested in. I do like Blown Out Bazaar Barge here.
I do too.
First of all, it replaces itself, which is always nice, and it's an artifact, so you don't even feel that bad about sacrificing it to something. And he's got a decent amount of like mid-range creatures, especially with that Snare Thopter he just picked up. So
Plus, it's a 5/5 for his Rishkar's expertise. I like the Bazaar Barge here. He's going to go for Rush of Vitality, which is a solid little combat trick as well. I am concerned about his creature count. I didn't get an exact count because it's too hard when they're flipping through. But
I got an exact count. It's 11.
did you? You just made that.
I will say that given the 2 High Spire infusions this already has, I would not be prioritizing combat tricks. I think that
Yes.
this is not a deck that wants 4 combat tricks. This is a deck that probably wants 0 to 2 combat tricks.
So he's choosing between Doomed Operative and a Weaponcraft Enthusiast.
I like Enthusiast here because Doomed Operative is another card that requires cheap artifacts, and Cesar is just lacking those, whereas Weaponcraft Enthusiast provides those cheap artifacts. He's got to take the enablers, and this is one of the perfect ones.
Yeah, and another one, again, any Fabricate card works well with the Whining Constrictor. You can go turn 2 Whining Constrictor into turn 3 Weaponcraft Enthusiast and still get yourself an extra +1/+1 counter.
There looked like there was a Midnight Oil in that pack as well, though I do like the Weaponcraft Enthusiast much better in this position.
I see.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Cesar doesn't have the luxury of taking maybe the slightly more powerful card because he just needs the cards that are filling the holes in his deck. Ooh, another Weaponcraft Enthusiast. I am, in fact, enthusiastic about that.
Yeah.
Cesar is getting bailed out by those enthusiasts. I mean, that is exactly what his deck needs.
Okay, number 2. Green cards have stopped flowing so far, but that would be expected by Cesar, so let's see what he gets next. Oval Chase Dragster and a Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot. A lot of blue cards in the pack.
I'm not too unhappy with Dragster. It's a combo with Rishkar's expertise as well. You also just picking up the 2 Weaponcraft Enthusiasts means that you'll have a servo lying around to crew it. And it's good with the 2 High Spire infusions Cesar has.
Yeah.
If you can get like a hit in with this while they're tapped out, the next turn attack and High Spire infusion it, you end up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, for sure. It does have a nice. It's a high power. I mean, it's one of those cards that usually just hits once, gets in for some damage, and eats a blocker. But his deck looks like it's actually set up to take advantage just of enough to make that the pick. What's next? Die Young.
Die Young and Thriving Rats both are good cheap black cards. I think Die Young is something that he'd slightly more likely to prioritize just because Cesar's also very light on removals. His deck also does need interaction, so he's just missing a lot of different facets here, though picking up those 2 Weaponcraft Enthusiasts goes a long way.
Yeah. You mentioned, we saw the Cruel Finality he got with just 3 cards left in the pack. I think that's the only removal spell he has. No Prey Upons, right?
I think he picked 1 Prey Upon.
Did he pick up 1? Okay, so 1 Prey Upon, 1 Cruel Finality. Has it come to this? Aradara Express. Oh, there's a Subtle Strike in there too, though.
Yeah, Subtle Strike's another combat trick, though. That one at least provides a little bit of removal. There's also Appetite for the Unnatural, but given the natural obsolescence, Cesar's less interested in that.
That's right. He took the Express. That is a way to steal a game. And there's a Prakata Club security for him.
It's interesting. I feel like blue was very open this draft, but after looking at pack 1, I'm not actually sure how you get into blue. There's not. I don't think there was actually a realistic out to get into blue. So I certainly don't fault Cesar for not drafting blue. I think most players would not draft blue in his seat despite it being open because there's just no good blue card in the first 5 picks.
Looks like he may be settling with the Sage of Shayla's Claim, but hey, he'll take a little 2-drop to go into his green deck.
Yeah, the energy works with Die Young, though.
Yeah.
I think that's his only energy payoff.
Might make the cut.
I actually don't mind Dukar Scavenger in this deck.
The question is, do you take the foil one or the regular?
That's what I was about to ask. I would actually just take the regular one.
At the Pro Tour or in all scenarios?
All scenarios.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
The second Aradara Express, I don't think is going to make the cut. I actually don't even know if the first one is going to make the cut.
No, there's a good chance it doesn't. You need a pretty high creature count to make that work. And now we're in the last few picks of the pack here for Cesar. So he's not likely to pick up playables here. I do think he made it to playables. You know, in modern era draft sets, there are a lot of playable cards, and
Definitely.
you know, you can stretch that definition to make sure that you have a functional deck. But yeah, his deck's going to have some issues, no doubt about it. When he puts the deck together, he's going to have some gaps in the synergies that he wants, and it's missing a few of the fundamental pieces that he'd really like for a deck like this. That said, he's got some pretty powerful stuff in there. That Rishkar's expertise does a lot of work and can really power you through in the late game. He's got a Druid of the Cowl to help power it out as well, and if he can, you know, curve one of his bigger creatures into it. Also, the turn when you play a turn 2 Whining Constrictor usually works out well for you somehow.
Cesar doesn't actually have a ton of plus muscle encounters. He's got like the Defiant Salvager,
The 2 Enthusiasts,
and the Ironclad Revolutionary. So this isn't a deck that's built to maximize Winding Constrictor. Verdant Automaton, I suppose, as well. I will say that looking at the other cards that got passed, this didn't seem like an incredibly high power level, at least on Cesar's side of the table. Like I wasn't seeing like 5th pick, you know, cards that you'd want to first pick in a different color.
Sure.
It wasn't like Cesar was passing a ton of, you know, like Late Shocks or Ether Chasers in red or the like. That said, this is he ended up with a black-green deck that doesn't have a very clearly defined theme, and that's just a place where you get into trouble.
Yeah, that can be really problematic, especially here at the Pro Tour level, you know, where we've got extremely high competition. And as you saw from that draft pod, I mean, you saw Ben Rubin, Ben Stark, you know, kind of finishing up their drafts too.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, you know, you're going to have to play against those players. It's all within the pod there. So, you know, you are going to end up running into some of the best players in the game here. And you really want to have a great weapon in your hand when you go to do that. Cesar's going to have to make it work with what he's got.
Yeah, another thing to mention is because this is pod 1, Cesar is 8-0. If he loses round 1, he'll be 8-1. He'll play against one of the 7 ones who won round 1. Normally in a draft, you
that's
lose round
interesting.
1, you play against someone else who's 0-1. And that's kind of balancing, right? You both lost your first round. Your decks are probably like you're not likely to be as good. Cesar's going to play someone who won round 1. So that is the disadvantage of having the better record than everyone else.
Interesting.
Is you lose round 1 and you play against a winner, which is actually not as good for your chances.
Yeah, oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's just part of the inner pod play here that we have here at the Pro Tour. Okay, that's going to do it for our first draft. We've also recorded another draft for you to watch as well. But for now, let's head back up to the news desk.
Welcome back to the news desk. You just watched Cesar Segovia draft. Cesar, of course, playing in his first ever Pro Tour. He qualified for this event when he made the top 8 of the World Magic Cup as a member of the Panamanian national team. Now we're going to go across the floor to watch someone else draft with quite a contrasting experience. It's Lucas Blahan, of course, the Pro Tour Eldritch Moon champion and 2-time Pro Tour top 8 competitor, and 6th in the pro player rankings right now. Let's send it across to the floor to Ian Duke and Tim Willoughby to see what Lucas Blahan did at the same draft table.